Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles. I don't know if you had a chance to see this interview with Donald Trump by Judge Jeanine. Oh, I tell you, you gotta listen to this all the way through. It's kind of long. It was about 20 minutes long. But I want you to hear a couple of parts in particular. And I'm going to let you know a little bit more about what he has to say. So here's the first one.
Liar to Congress, convicted of it. Are you worried that he's going
Look, I was a client of his, and you're supposed to have lawyer-client privilege, but it doesn't matter because I'm a very honest person, frankly. But he's in trouble on some loans and fraud and taxi cabs and stuff that I know nothing about. And in order to get a sentence reduced, he says, I have an idea. I'll give you some information on the president. Well, there is no information, but he should give information maybe on his father-in-law, because that's the one that people want to look at, because where does that money? That's the money in the family. And I guess he didn't want to talk about his father-in-law. He's trying to get his sentence reduced. So it's pretty sad. It's weak. And it's very sad to watch a thing like that. I couldn't care less.
What is his father-in-law's name?
I don't know, but you'll find out and you'll look into it, because nobody knows what's going on over there. Again, I was a client. He has a law firm. They broke into his law firm sometime early in the morning, I guess, and they took it. This could...
Okay, at the end, I am going to put all the clips that I'm working on here, but I wanted to separate them out because there's so much that he says real fast here that I want to make sure that you see each individual point. And so on this first one, he's talking about Michael Cohen's father-in-law. Okay? And so I did a real quick dig. I gotta tell you, I didn't take very long on this, but this is what I've been able to glean so far. This guy, his name is Fima Shusterman. He reportedly loaned at least $20 million to a Chicago taxicab mogul, whose name was this right here. Okay, I'm not even going to try it this morning, okay? But anyway, so you can go through and look at that. But the father-in-law angle is very interesting. Q told us to watch the wives, and this is more true. Every time somebody famous comes out, it's like, wow, look at their wife. Find out about their wives, and it's amazing what connections there are when you start doing that. Well, she is Ukrainian, and he became a citizen, and then I think she was born here, but wow, just lots of connections start coming out. Now, keep in mind that this is from CNBC, so they are anti-Trump, and so they're going to try to pick out everything bad, and they're going to couch it in really negative terms. But that's okay. We can see through a lot of their work, because in this article, this is from the Talking Points Memo site, and this one puts out, here's why we care about Fima Shusterman. And it was about, and this again was back in May, and this was about a book that was coming out. I want you to check what this says here. Cohen was introduced to Trump by Cohen's father-in-law, Fima Shusterman, which indicates that Trump knew Fima Shusterman before he met Cohen, which isn't unusual, because if he was somebody who had a lot of wealth and he was in New York, it's not unusual that Trump knew them, because he knew all of the power players. But anyway, he was a naturalized U.S. citizen from Ukraine with a 1993 conviction for a money laundering related crime. And I found this on that, the court listener, and it does have information about that, the docket entries, and then here it gives just a basic summary about what it was. He pleaded guilty to count one of the information, which is did knowingly and willfully combine, conspire, confederate, and agree to defraud the U.S. by obstructing and defeating the lawful functions of the Internal Revenue Service of the Treasury Department. They kind of avoided income tax there, and I don't know all the details on it. It doesn't give much here, and I don't have a Pacer account, so I can't go through and get it off a Pacer. But if you have a Pacer account, you can easily check it out there. But you can go through and look at all this. This is like the docket, and you can follow along with what was going on with it. So that's what it's talking about here. But then it goes on, Fima may have been a possibly silent business partner with Trump, perhaps even used as a conduit for Russian investors in Trump properties and other ventures. A former federal investigator told me. Cohen, who married into the family, was given the job with the Trump organization as a favor to Shusterman. All right, now, look what this says afterwards. Untrue, Cohen told me. Your source is creating fake news. I believe that because look at what it says here. It's very important when you read articles that you watch for some key words because they speak volumes, but most people skip over them. So be very careful when you're reading such things. Especially this place is definitely an anti-Trump source as well. But look at this. May. This word right here, may, that's a very important word. When that's used, you know that they don't have enough evidence to prove it. You'll hear a lot of times on pharmaceutical companies that they'll put out a drug on, you'll see an advertisement for a drug on TV and it says it may be caused by such and such. Or it may do this, it may do that. The reason is because they don't have any firm evidence, so they can't say it. And they have to put the word may so that it negates a possibility of them being sued for what they said. They like to do this especially with drugs dealing with anxiety and depression and things like that. Listen very carefully to what they say because I'm very skeptical about such things. I know it's an unpopular stance, but a lot of these drugs, you have to look at how the whole drug thing works. They get a drug out on patent for 7 years. Once that 7 years is over, then it goes generic and they don't make their money off of it. But if they can make up something else all of a sudden that drug can address, then they'll make more money and they can get the patent extended for another 7 years. But yes, that's how it works. That's why you see a lot of these antidepressant drugs, and then suddenly 7 years later, oh, they also work for anxiety. And then 7 years later, they come up with something else because it's only under patent that they can really make their money. If it goes to generic, then most people take the generic because it's a whole lot cheaper. So I'm really skeptical about such things, but that's for another video maybe someday. Right now, let's get back to FEMA. So it uses the word may have been, or it may not. We don't know. In other words, no evidence to prove. Possibly, another one of those weak weasel words. I like to call them weasel words. It's a weasel word, man. May have been, possibly silent business partner. So in other words, we have no idea if this is true, but we're going to put it out there. So we can get the gullible people to believe it. Perhaps this is another one of those weasel words, perhaps even used as a conduit for Russian investigators in Trump properties and other ventures. Dun, dun, dun. I mean, this is really one of the weakest sentences here because it uses so many weasel words. It essentially is, we have no clue and we're just making this up because it sounds good to us, so we'll put it out there. I mean, at least if you're going to do that, say it. But then they try to qualify it by, a former federal investigator told me. Well, yeah, okay, anonymous source. So, in order to make it sound more real, we add an anonymous source at the end. Nobody can question us because we can't tell you who our source is, obviously. We're trying to protect them because they are a former federal investigator. Okay, I got news for you. If the person's not going to give you their name and allow you to put their name with that particular comment, then you know what? The comment's not valid. That's just the way it is. Especially if they're former, there's absolutely no reason they should be able to say something like that and then not have their name attached to it. And the reason the name's not attached is because it's a very questionable source. They don't know if it's true, and it may actually be made up. So this right here, this entire book, I'm going to agree with Cohen here. Untrue. Your source is creating fake news. Fake news. So that's what I think of this particular thing. But again, I'll put all these articles down below. You can look through them at your own leisure and tell me what you think about them. But I wouldn't buy this book because that is such a weasel sentence right there that they have no sources. They're just making things up and they don't care. It's totally truthification. They're taking fiction and trying to make it look like truth. That's what they're doing. So here's the court case. I'll leave that down below too. But there's another article that I'll include too, so you can look through it. This is from the Chicago Sun-Times, and it takes a little bit more view of the Chicago aspect of this. But I'll tell you, there's really not much here. It's just talking about his father-in-law giving this $20 million in loans to this guy with the big name that I'm not going to pronounce. And it just goes through it and talks more about the actual taxi cab deal and everything like that. So you can read through that. Again, left wing, so please keep that in mind. This came out back in April again. It's been out for a while. Nothing's come of it. But because POTUS said that, I think there's a real reason we need to be paying attention to this guy, Fima Shusterman. I'll keep you informed if the Anons come up with anything earth-shattering about the guy. Pretty much everything that's in here is what they're coming up with at this point. But they know how to dig really well, so we'll find out more about that. Okay, now here's the next clip.
They broke into his law firm sometime early in the morning, I guess, and they took it. This couldn't happen to anybody except you're dealing with McCabe, you're dealing with the remnants of Comey, and wait till you see how it all ends up. You watch. McCabe, Lisa Page, Strzok. You wait till you see how that all ends up, including some others that I could name, but I better not. We'll make front page news if I do.
I can't wait to read it. Will you release the FISA?
Okay, now did you catch that? He was specifically naming out McCabe and all those people underneath him, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and he's indicating here that something is in the works. I don't think you have to be a Q follower to see that. I think it was pretty clear that he's hinting that there's something going on behind the scenes that's going to reveal the corruption and that there's more than what we're seeing on the surface. I think it's pretty clear here that he's indicating there's much more going on than we can see. So be aware of that, share that, because there are things happening behind the scenes. We don't know it all, and we shouldn't, because we're not privy to a lot of this classified stuff. And that's why we're not seeing it yet. When they get it all completed, everything they need to have put in place, it's going to come out. But until then, we're not going to see a lot of what's going on. It's kind of like, in a way, when a woman gets pregnant, a lot is going on in her belly for 9 months. You may see from the outside that, yes, her stomach is getting bigger, but you don't really understand what all is going on inside. There is so much happening inside her womb that you don't even know. All you can see is, well, yeah, her stomach's getting bigger, and that's it. But when that baby comes out, then you get to see what everything was. Everything that was being put together, all those pieces being put into place, being formed and grown. You didn't know it was happening because all you saw was the outside. And I think this is the situation we're in right now. I think there is this baby being put together inside. And when that baby's born, we're going to get a chance to see it in all of its intricate glory. But until then, we just have to take it on faith that, yes, there is a baby there, and yes, the baby is being grown and being put together just like it needs to be. So hang in there on that. I know everybody wants to see the arrest, but it takes time to make sure everything's all in place, all the pieces are where they need to be, so when the baby comes out, they're fully formed. So building these cases, putting all the evidence together, getting everything in line, I think that's the stage we're at. And I think this right here is POTUS's clue to us. He gives us hints. If you're really paying attention closely, he does give us hints. And I think this is one of them. So kind of an important thing.
We'll make front page news if I do.
I can't wait to read it. Will you release the FISA? We're all waiting for the FISA.
Well, at the right time, we will probably do that. If that's necessary, we'll do that. You know, that's very, very important stuff.
I know.
And, you know, as you know, a lot of bad things happened with a lot of elements of what we're talking about. And at the right time, we will probably do that. That's right.
All right.
Okay, so the FISA. Yeah, it does sound like it is definitely being held there. I think he's using it as leverage right now. He's also got to take into consideration other countries. And this is something that I think we are so focused on wanting to get rid of the corruption in our own government that we're forgetting that there's a lot of corruption in other governments. And if or when he releases this FISA, it's going to cause some problems in at least 2 other countries and possibly more. So that's something he has to consider too. I mean, yes, it's great that if everyone can take on their corrupt politicians, but think about it. We have somebody who's in there who knows what the corruption is, and he and the military are working together to make this come out well. It is an intricate plan that's going on behind the scenes. But what if it comes out in other countries that their leaders are very corrupt like this, but there's no infrastructure to help support them while they're trying to deal with the corruption? See, that's, I think, what he's trying to mitigate here when he's not releasing the FISA yet. There are ramifications within the global community for doing this. And the same thing, if you watched my video on the Benghazi server, there's information on there that could really cause a global war. That's why he has to work very carefully with this. And again, the plan is so intricate, we don't know it all. And we shouldn't, because if we do, the deep state's going to know it as well. We usually don't find out what's part of the plan until after it has come to pass. That's just the way it works, because again, if they tell us, they're going to be telling the deep state as well. And it's better that the deep state doesn't know what their plans are. And Trump said this from the start. He said this when he was campaigning, that he didn't want to tell the enemy what they were going to do. Well, that's what's going on. For us, it may look bleak, but it's not. Things are going on, and he's got a plan, and he gives us little hints like this along the way. And I think it's obvious to anybody, whether you follow Q or not, I think it's pretty obvious from these clips along in here that he has more in the works than what we're seeing. Did you notice that about him saying if he told who they were, it would be front page news?
We'll make front page news if I do.
I can't wait to read it.
Because we know who it is. We know that it includes Obama and Hillary and many, many others in our government. So he can't really release it yet. It'll all come out eventually, but there's going to have to be a lot done behind the scenes. The more this goes on, sometimes I wonder if some of this isn't going to happen covertly because of the toll it would take both globally and to the American people. Because I'm pretty sure that John McCain was tried in a military tribunal and found guilty. And I'm pretty sure that he was executed. And probably Poppy Bush too, but I can't verify on those. I mean, he was old enough, he could have just died naturally. But I really do think that there have been some military tribunals going on. I can't say that there's been a lot of them. I'm still not a fan of the idea that they were all arrested on December 21st. I really don't see any indication that that's true. I do see some old tweets and everything, but I don't know that that's enough evidence for that. I think they had to wait until after the executive order went into play on January 1st, though. But I could be wrong, and that's just my opinion on those. I really don't see enough evidence to support it. But anyway, with this, he definitely has some things up his sleeve. There are some people that are very high up, according to this, and it would definitely be front page news. So it's coming. It's probably not going to come out exactly the way we imagine, or maybe the way we want. Yeah, all of us would love to see them perp walked, I'm sure, but sometimes doing it a little differently can be better for the American people as a whole. I'm positive that all of this will come out eventually to the American public, so people will know for sure that these people have been tried. I think they're probably recording the tribunals, and so that will be released down the line. But right now, we have a real situation with the mainstream media. We have to try to decrease the influence and impact that they have. And I think that's going to happen slower than faster. So there may be things that we don't see happen, but that did happen and are being recorded for future posterity, but we won't see for a while. And I'm okay with that as long as the people are being dealt with and that there is justice being applied. I would like to see it myself. But if it doesn't happen publicly and it is actually happening, that at least is important to me, that there is justice being done. So that's my opinion on that. I don't know. Some of you will disagree with me, I'm sure, but let me know it in the comments. It's okay if you disagree. I don't care. I'm not a liberal Nazi. I don't really care if you disagree with me. It's okay. I post comments that I disagree with all the time. And for those who don't think anything's been happening, look back a year or two ago and think where we were then. How little we knew about all of this and how much has come out and been exposed to the public and has become common knowledge. It's very important that we reflect on that because it's the indication that yes, things are indeed happening. So that's what I've got for you today so far. If I find out more about Michael Cohen's father-in-law, I will let you know. But as of now, I think it has something to do with his connections maybe to the Ukraine and his money and possibly the connection to that other guy with the big name that I'm not going to say. So that's where I am with it right now. I'm going to play the full clip here, not the full clip. I'll put that down below so you can watch the whole interview yourself. But all of the little pieces that I chopped up for you, I'll put them all together here so you can watch it all together and get the full continuity of it all.
Liar to Congress, convicted of it. Are you worried that he's going to...
Look, I was a client of his, and, you're supposed to have lawyer-client privilege, but it doesn't matter because I'm a very honest person, frankly. But he's in trouble on some loans and fraud and taxi cabs and stuff that I know nothing about. And in order to get a sentence reduced, he says, I have an idea. I'll give you some information on the president. Well, there is no information, but he should give information maybe on his father-in-law because that's the one that people want to look at because where does that money? That's the money in the family. And I guess he didn't want to talk about his father-in-law. He's trying to get his sentence reduced. So it's pretty sad. It's weak. And it's very sad to watch a thing like that. I couldn't care less.
What is his father-in-law's name?
I don't know, but you'll find out and you'll look into it because nobody knows what's going on over there. Again, I was a client. He has a law firm. They broke into his law firm sometime early in the morning, I guess, and they took it. This couldn't happen to anybody except you're dealing with McCabe, you're dealing with the remnants of Comey, and wait till you see how it all ends up. You watch. McCabe, Lisa Page, Strzok. You wait till you see how that all ends up, including some others that I could name, but I better not. We'll make front page news if I do.
I can't wait to read it. Will you release the FISA? We're all waiting for the FISA.
Well, at the right time, we will probably do that. If that's necessary, we'll do that. That's very, very important stuff.
I know.
And, as you know, a lot of bad things happened with a lot of elements of what we're talking about. And at the right time, we will probably do that. That's right.
And just one final reminder, because Q dropped while I was doing this, and he put this link. So I'll make sure this one's down in the description for you as well. But let's just remember that this article came out back on February 11th, 2018. Exclusive, CIA ex-director Brennan's perjury peril. Yeah, the guy was being investigated for perjury. Let's remember that. There are grand juries going on, folks. There are. And we're going to see the results of those. Remember the pregnant illustration. Right now, the pregnancy is going on, and we're not seeing a lot from outside except this one big bump. Well, we're going to find out what's under that bump pretty soon. It's going to happen. So, thanks for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.